Hi, good afternoon. My name is Li Shi, CEO of AM Batteries. So let me talk about the AM Batteries first, which is a company started to develop a new way to make electrode. And our ambition is to change the landscape of lithium battery by removing the usage of solvent. So for myself, I have been with AM Battery for 2 years. And before AM Battery, I was a president of Celgard, which is a major separator producer in the US. I think even today, it is still the largest separator producer in the US.
Wow, yeah. And what are you currently excited about that you're working on?
Well, I'm very excited about AM batteries because in your lifetime, you don't get many chance to change the landscape of a whole industry. And this is what we are doing here. And we are developing this dry battery electrode and to remove solvent usage. That's why this transition from wet to dry is happening right now. And so we're just getting on this major transformation. Very exciting, and we are addressing three major issues facing lithium batteries. Number one is the cost, especially with the current dynamic. The cost is became a major pressure for every battery makers, and we have a chance to save a lot of capital expenditure, operating expense by more than 40%. And secondly, we also can pack more cathode material or anode material into a battery by making thicker electrode. So that will improve the performance and the driving range. The third one also is actually connected with the overall lithium battery production. Even though the battery production, the renewable energy is a very environmental friendly applications and usage, but the way to make an electrode, make batteries actually is very dirty, use a lot of energies. So this is where we came in and remove the toxic solvent being used in the industry. And one more thing is became very important recently is in this U.S. supply chain of making batteries, there's one missing piece is equipment. And AM battery is trying to fill that gap. That's why sometimes we call ourselves AMB is American machine builder. We're trying to fill this gap and provide equipment for people to make electrode. Very exciting.
Yeah, it's definitely a gap in the industry to have the equipment and the manufacturing process to build
Yes.
these things. And this is indeed a game changer. What are some of your current challenges you're facing as you're commercializing this technology?
Um, Many challenges. Some of them is very typical facing any startup companies. You need to have a resource. You need to have lighthouse customers willing to adopt your technology, and also you need to have the talent. And also uniquely to AM batteries, we're competing against the wet process, which has been in place for the last 30 years. So people has been getting used to the very high production yield, over 98 to 99%, and the uniformity is extremely good. So we need to overcome those challenges. Very similar to what I don't know whether you know Clayton Christensen. He wrote a book called The Innovator's Dilemma. In the book, he mentioned the disruptive technology facing most challenges is how to overcome this initial gap on the quality of the product. So that is a major challenge. And then also trying to attract the best talent who can help us is very challenging. Then also the runway is very important. We're very fortunate we have a very good war chest already put in place. Over the last few years, we raised $74 million, so we should be able to hit most milestones. But those are the challenges we have to work on.
Yeah, that's incredible. And that's great that you have the support. And I'm curious, as you've gone about your professional journey, what are you
Mhm.
most proud of?
I think the things I'm really proud of is the people I have worked with over all these years. I have been in the lithium battery industry for over 2 decades. I have run into some amazing people, and many of them are still in the field, working alongside me to move things forward. Some of them actually is on the NAATBatt, and since you talk about the people, uh, I'm very proud of and associated with. I think one of them is Jim Greenberger. I think you know he's a founding member and also the managing director of NAATBatt. And if you know his story and knows how he started this trade association and with a lot of people laughing at him and doubting his motives, but he just pulled through. He had a passion to change the world, and he just changed his career, start to build this amazing organization. So on my book, he's my hero. And talking about things I'm proud of, another minor thing is one was at Celgard. We actually put in a system that we are going to provide 3 free samples of separators to all the universities and research labs in the US. And I faced a lot of pushback within the organization, but I felt that it's the best way to make lithium battery happening in the US. So over 20 some years, we made a lot of friends with all the universities and all the new PhDs. And then somehow, until 4 or 5 years ago, some bad actors shows up and they start to counterfeit Celgard separators. So we have to shut them down. Then we eventually put everything on the online. So we have online store start to charge people to cover some handling expense. But even today, when people run into me, especially some new PhDs, they thank Celgard for the support of those free samples. So I'm very proud of that. And also the last thing is I was very fortunate that I was a part of um, the team and the company that start to see the growth of lithium batteries, whether at Celgard and AM batteries, especially at AM batteries. I hope eventually when I look back, this will be the proudest moment. And all these challenges we are facing eventually became the foundation for the future growth and the success of AM batteries.
I love that. I mean, just the people in this industry truly are special, and what you've built, both with, Celgard, and now it really speaks to those values that you have. And tell me more about what are the guiding values that you've had throughout your career that have gotten you to this point.
Yeah, that's a very big question. On the personal level, usually I just very work pretty hard, and but actually at AM batteries, we actually take time trying to develop the value of the company and develop the cultural attribute. I find that very enlightening because I joined the company as a CEO, and I was able to actually form the future culture of the company. So through some sessions, we eventually consolidated our cultural attribute into 4 elements. Number one is the innovation or creativity. Without innovation, there's no AM batteries. That's very clear. Second one is the collaboration or teamwork. And we are not in the maybe 50 years ago when you're working on one computer or software, you can work by yourself. But now we're in a chemical industry and the things happening with the teamwork. So that's number 2. Number 3 is very unique. We call it transparency. And in the startup world, you have a lot of people trying to tell lies about their achievement and in order to move forward. And so we made it very clear transparency with our own staff and with investors, with customers is extremely important. So that is another value we put onto our own charter. The fourth one is resilience and hard work. This is the nature of any startup companies. And we will face challenges. We'll have some bumps we have to ride over. But this is the time to test whether we have what it takes to be a startup company and be successful. So funding every defeat along the way as a learning moment to build the resilience within the organization. So in the end, we come up with these 4 value attributes. And as a management, we usually slap people on the hand if they are violating this value, and we encourage them and recognize them if they pursue and do things reflect the value of AM batteries.
Wow, yeah, it really speaks to the kind of change you want to bring about in the industry and just
Yes,
that resilience we need in the industry right now, especially.
that's right.
Yeah. So I'd like to talk a little bit about the trends you're seeing in the industry. So, uh, what do you think people should be paying more attention to regarding trends in the
Mhm.
battery industry?
Um, the first thing, maybe you shouldn't be surprised. This transformation from wet to dry will happen. This is related to AM batteries goal. But also, there's many other inventions happening every day, whether it's in lithium metal, solid state batteries, sodium ion batteries. But I hope people also trying to do sufficient study of what has happened before. And I have run into some scientists who are working on lithium metal technology, but they have not studied what happened 20, 30 years ago. I like to tell people a story that actually the battery, lithium battery was initially commercialized by a company called Moly. It's in Canada, and this company made 1 million cells for a customer called NEC. And this actually is a lithium metal based battery system and rechargeable. And then within a few months of this release, the whole industry has to be shut down because in Australia, a salesman blew his ear off because this lithium battery exploded.
Wow.
So I hope the people who getting into the lithium metal understand what happened and 20, 30 years ago understand a lot of the physics causing this explosion to occur is still there. You need to find solutions to address that physics. So not only develop new solutions, but also need to know the history, know the very fundamental physics. Um, so that is one part. Then the other part is more of uh, breakthrough is important, but also a lot of improvement work is very important. Last night I was reading Walter Isaacson's book, The Innovators, and he wrote a big, thick book. And part of the book club that we have at the AM Batteries, this is part of the assignment. There's many things written in the book, very valuable. But one thing stick with me today is he mentioned something like progress comes not only in great leaps, but also from hundreds of small steps. So that is what we're facing right now. And we're trying to turn this great leap, great concept into a really manufacturing process. It requires a lot of daily work to improve every step to make it happen. So everyone just need to be patient, right? Breakthrough is great, but a lot of unsung hero happens in the daily work.
Definitely just that balance of, we want to rush to the next thing, the next
Yes,
innovation, but keeping in mind the history, the safety, these different trade-offs that are kind of
yes.
baked into the development process. Very important to consider. I'm really glad you highlighted those.
Yeah.
And what makes you feel optimistic and energized about what's ahead for the industry?
I think there's a couple of points. One is you do see more companies are building battery in this company, battery manufacturing plants in the U.S. And most of them is from Asia. That's okay because we can learn from them. But having manufacturing plant in the U.S. will eventually build up a supply chain around this plant. So I'm very optimistic. And maybe just like Jim Greenberg mentioned in his newsletter last week, we just make sure the government and the industry work together to move this forward. So something like happened in Honda plant in Georgia doesn't happen in the future. Another one is the basic science and also calculation need to be there. So when you pursue any new technology, make sure the saving, the performance improvement is substantiated by the real calculation. And so this is very important. If you started on the wrong foot, then everything you do is just total waste of time. So make sure you do the very basic fundamental studies. And maybe this allow me to tell the audience that AM battery recently put together interactive calculator to show how the dry process can save money over the wet process. And if you go to AM Battery's website, there's an interactive calculator. And anyone, especially some of the people are very interested in techno-economic analysis, and that will be a great tool to see how much value we can get. And that is the basis for our business and for AM batteries.
Yeah, I'm so glad you highlighted that. That's such an incredible resource just to show how this can make an impact in somebody's operations. So glad you shared that. And pivoting a little bit towards NAATBatt now, what is your role within NAATBatt?
On and off, I have known NAATBatt for over 15 years. And maybe 15 years ago, when NAATBatt was first established by Jim, and we realized that not too many people knows how to make batteries, and many people doesn't even know what a separator is. You know, in the electrochemistry 101, usually it's anode, cathode, electrolyte. There's no mentioning about the separator. So he asked me and Brian Morin to give a tutorial about the separators. And I just found out, wow, this is amazing that people design the batteries but doesn't know what is the function of separator. They just assume separator is a reservoir holding the electrolyte, but it is doing much more. You know, it's really separating anode cathode, and it can really causing problems. It's like oxygen. If you don't have it, you start to suffocate. But you have it, you just don't even know it is there. I don't know whether you remember. Maybe you're too young. 10 years ago, there was a Galaxy Note 7 incident. That when you get on the airplane, the steward usually tell everyone to shut down the Note 7 because it can catch fire. The reason is they put in a separator which is too thin and not well designed. As a result, couldn't prevent the shorting. So that is one thing we did during the seminar 15 years ago, talking about the safety and talking about separators. And more recently, I was a member of the board of NAATBatt and has been participating in a few subcommittees like manufacturing in the US and also equipment manufacturing in the US. And we found it very helpful.
That's incredible. Wow. It's so interesting to think back, 15 years ago where NAATBatt was then and now where things are
It's
now
totally
and you're on
different.
the
Yes,
board. So
yes.
that's incredible to hear that story. And how has being involved in NAATBatt made a difference for you and organizations that you've been a part of?
On multiple levels. Number one is network. I found out a lot of like-minded people and with a similar challenge, with a similar goals in this NAATBatt association. So anyone who are a player in this industry definitely need to choose NAATBatt as a association to be with. Second one is I just met so many amazing people. I have never been in a community that with so many smart people, but they are so gracious and generous with their network, with their insight, and with their help. You know, in the industry, sometimes on the network piece, you don't share relationship with others. But in this group of people, especially start with Jim and also very close with Brian Ingle and also Fred Lee, who's a subcommittee member on offshore committee. Those people are tremendously helpful to me. And they connect me with many customers and suppliers, allow AM batteries to advance. The last one is they are really stay on top of what is happening. And I think most recently they had an interpretation of OBBB and also maybe most recently the Azure and the EPA and the task has some new regulations. They jump on it and start to update the members. What is the impact? And also recently they, I think, asked the task force, which is called the Lee Bridge or Lithium Bridge, and to work on the manufacturing equipment in the US. I found it very timely. So just a lot of good work done by NAATBatt.
So much is going on. It's hard to
Yeah.
keep up with, but yeah, there's lots of ways to connect with the industry and everything.
Yes.
Thanks for sharing that. And what would you say to a company that's considering joining NAATBatt as a member?
I think any company want to advance in the lithium battery supply chain needs a collaboration from other players. I think NetBet is the first place to sign up and get connected with right people. I think that's number one. And then the other things is just repeating what I mentioned earlier. The network, you have the people, and also they stay on top of the government policies. So this is a great place to get to know people, know the direction, and also working with the giants who's shaping the industry for the next 20 years.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so what do you do when you're not working in the world of batteries?
Well, and it's hard to say because I have been stuck in this battery field for the last 20, 30 years. That's all I'm thinking. And also, running a startup company doesn't give you too much time to do serious play, other things like climbing Mount Everest. Some of my friends start to do that. But when I do have some time, I try to read some books. And I like to read books in its original language, whether it's English, Japanese, or Chinese. And also, I was part of the informal book club in Charlotte. And after I joined AM Batteries, we have a formal book club within AMB. I'm a member of this and trying to broaden my horizon because my friends, colleagues read much broader than myself. So I found it very exciting. Then I also do some things to maintain my health, play golf, tennis, and sometimes to do rock climbing, trying to impress my children that I can still keep up with them. So pretty interesting.
Wow, yeah, it sounds like you have a variety of hobbies that you do outside of the workplace. What's a book that I don't know surprised you that you liked more than you thought you would?
Wow. Okay. And there's a few books. The series book is I mentioned to you earlier, The Innovators. Oh, that's a very big book. But I also like the book, The Light We Cannot See. I think this is a very interesting book about the Second World War. Another book I was reading is A Gentleman in Moscow. I don't know whether you heard that book. So, and also I like the Japanese author Murakami Haruki, and he wrote a book called 1Q84. So if you get a chance to find a Japanese book to read, that is a great book to read.
How many languages do you speak?
I usually read books in three languages and trying to learn some other language, like a Korean language, very exciting, and also German language.
Oh
So
wow,
I
that's
know
incredible.
some very basic grammar, but I forget most of them already. Yeah, Korean is a fascinating language because I always tell my friends that Korean language is the most scientifically designed language. And also, I tell American friends that the project leader is their king. Okay, so the king put 500 scholars together to build a new language about 600 years ago. That is amazing.
Wow, I didn't realize that
Yeah.
history. Oh, that's so
Yes.
interesting.
So if you learn Korean and look at the history and then how they use it, and it's really fascinating. Mm.
Yeah, I have so much to learn. You know what I find out every day is I have so much to learn. Thank you so much. That brings us to the end of our questions. Are there any other things you would want to share with the audience?
Maybe just on the NAATBatt, I think with any associations, it usually uh, how much you get out of it is proportional to how much you put in. So try to help the NAATBatt, and then you can get most out of it. So that's my comment. And thank you for the opportunity to discuss various things interesting for the industry.
Yeah, thank you so much for taking the time to do this.